Hi, Gabby. How are you doing? Hi. Nice to meet you. Hi, Li-lin. Hi, Bob. Hi, Farah. Is it in a nice cushy seat?
Very hot.
As a father, I have my worries about my two young daughters, whether they will succeed in their careers of choice, have passion in their work, whether they have boyfriends. My wife and I, we tend to overprotect them. On the other hand, I tell myself, let go. Let them grow up, take some risks so that they can be able to stand on their own, just like any other parent, wanting the very best for our kids.
Thank you, panelists, for joining us here today. And thank you, Minister, for taking the hot seat. You know we have lots of questions for you, so I'm going to start, okay?
My pleasure. Let's share our views.
Okay, how early do you think we should start preparing our children for the VUCA world, which is a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment?
It's never too early to start. When I was a young father, I would find fun things to do with my kids. Reading, going outdoors to the swimming pool, having bonding time. There are learning opportunities that are completely tacit through play. In the uncertain world, the most important thing, in my view, is getting our kids to have the joy of learning, nurture their critical, inventive, creative thinking skills.
Tjin and I have always discussed this. Tjin, I'm quite sure you have lots to add to this because you're quietly sitting there.
Not my turn yet.
No, you can just talk. Minister was saying we're trying to create a more creative and inventive way. The whole point about VUCA is the fact that things change so quickly. What's true today might not be true tomorrow. The jobs that our kids are going to have, we might not know what they could be. How are we going to adapt to that sort of environment?
You got to start from first principles. We have a good school system that equips our children with critical thinking skills, top-notch intellect development. But in the uncertain world, how do you get them to apply those things that they've learned? How do you help our kids bridge that gap? We need to move our school system to create that environment where it is safe for the kids to express their views, to try new ideas, and be resilient in the new world.
Do we really think, though, that we are nurturing creative thinkers? Because in the way that we currently teach or educate, it's sort of like we go after grades, scores, you learn, you memorize, do your homework. We're churning out excellent employees. But where are your innovative and creative thinkers?
It will take some time, Jean. The system is changing. The way that we bring education into the classroom is somewhat different from my time, probably different from yours as well. There is a certain strength in the academic rigor that we put our kids through. We are also moving our school system away from the overemphasis on academic results, bringing them out into the applied learning space where they don't learn mathematics by the timetable that you and I are used to. Kids as young as those in kindergarten now learn addition and subtraction without actually being told that they're learning mathematics. I met a couple of kids, 6 years old. They have a pretend pet shop with a cashier. I say, "Whoa, I love this rabbit. How much is it?" She says, $3. And I handed over some Monopoly money. This is $10. Can you give me back my change? And she very happily told me, "Sure, uncle, I'll give you back $7. That is learning mathematics through play.
Well, I think that's all fine and dandy. There's types of parents like you who really pro-play. I was talking to a parent the other day, and she's pro-play, but she wants her kid to be ready for school because when they go to school, that's what they're judging her by her grades. So there is a little bit of, contradiction here.
We need a partnership with parents and to assure them that there are many paths to success, new possibilities, not just through good grades. Today, you have so many avenues to succeed. Do I really need to be a present scholar to be successful? No. In fact, some of my friends that are successful in life don't even have a primary school leaving certificate. One in particular don't even speak English, but he speaks Mandarin, is doing well, and gives back to society.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you that happiness and success are two totally different things. You can be happy without being successful, and you can be successful without being happy.
Yes. We look forward to partnering parents like you to cultivate that joy of learning and add that little bit of X factor, which I call entrepreneurial dare, into the kids' life, into the kids' learning process. So when we talk about applied learning, I have given a very clear direction to MOE that it will not be graded. We have the traditional strengths, we have the applied learning space where we can allow the kids to explore and discover so that they can find their own rainbow, so that they can succeed.
I'm concerned that there's so much pressure on the kids in school these days. Like before they even start primary one, they can do multiplication and spell amphitheater. So I think there's a lot of pressure on me as a parent as well to keep up because I was not a very good student. I used to forget to bring my books, get sent out of class, get scolded all the time.
Me too.
Same. Don't worry, you're not
There's a
alone.
pattern here.
This is true for 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs. We tend not to be good students because we march to the beat of a different drum. With regards to parenthood, I also have a very relaxed attitude towards my son, and I want him to have a childhood and to enjoy and be a child. I don't want to send him for endless enrichment and tuition. I want him to be learning through play, travel, and adventure, not through lessons and lessons and lessons. However, I feel the pressure as a parent that if I'm not sending him for all these additional classes, additional math, additional Mandarin, and I see his peers pulling away from him, I feel that I'm failing him or that I need to keep up. But at the same time, I've said to my friends before, I don't really mind that he doesn't perform well in school, so long as he does his best. His best should be good enough so that he can get from primary 1 to primary 2 to primary 3 and so on. I didn't need him to get A's to excel. How do we alleviate some of that pressure that is building up so that parents like myself, who were quite happy to be more relaxed, or is it that we are a kiasu society and that this has sort of driven us into this state and we have made things worse as parents?
Well, this is really a dilemma. What is the definition of success for the kids? How we look at success as a society. So what if you can spell amphitheater? How much does it matter in life? Does it matter that you can do 6 times 6 at primary 1?
But it matters because they're failing and then being penalized for it.
Are they failing in your eyes or in the school
they'll be doing
system?
poorly in school and then they'll be ostracized.
Well, Jean, in primary 1, we don't require our kids to do 6 times 6. But what I heard, if you don't mind me saying, was how would I feel for my child? You have the best intention as a mother. I'm sure all of us do.
Yep.
But how do we take that step back versus what other folks may be saying, what their kids are doing? I have my own views of how I want my child to be nurtured. Do you remember your PSLE score?
Yes, I
Did
did
it-
very badly.
Did it determine your life? My PSLE score didn't determine my life.
Yeah.
My A-level results didn't determine my life. If you are a brilliant mathematician on paper, can you actually talk? Can you actually influence? Can you actually lead? I think those are the other qualities that are needed in life.
The pressure on parents and pressure on kids isn't really addressed. There's a disconnect between educators and the parents and the kids themselves. Everybody is disconnected. This goes back to the point where I said I didn't want to put any pressure on my child as long as he does his best in school. But when I shared that with my friends who had children in primary 1, they said, "Oh, Jin, you're so naive. It's not about what you want. Your son is going to enter primary 1. This is a personal experience she shared. Her daughter was in primary 1 and she said that her daughter came home crying from school one day because she got B's. And she said, my classmates told me I'm stupid because I got a B. So all the friends don't want to play with her because she's stupid. I realized that it's not about what I want for my child or what I think is okay. I realized that it's actually society and the pressure that sort of spills over, peer pressure, school pressure, pressure on the teachers, parents, which is then placed on the entire system. How do we collectively turn it off?
If I may, Minister, this is a process of change. This is not going to take place overnight. And us as parents will do better by shifting our mindset slowly. But until that takes place, parents do feel that stress. And how do we cope with that?
To share another story, a friend of mine, her son is in primary 1 and he did poorly in Chinese. So his teacher said to him, and I'm sure this doesn't apply to all teachers, but this particular teacher said to him, you did poorly in Mandarin, your mother doesn't love you because she didn't send you for tuition.
Oh my God.
She was nearly tearing as she shared this story with me because she said, I don't even dare to tell the teacher or the principal because what will happen is my son might get further penalized. Another friend said to her, oh, that you think that's bad? She said, my son Xiaoming was in school and he forgot to bring his textbook. And the teacher then said to the class, Xiaoming forgot to bring his textbook. Who here hates Xiaoming? And the children were asked to put up their hands. The child came home crying and his mother asked him why he's crying. He said, because everyone in school hates me. You can edit all this out. I'm just sharing with you. I'm just trying to say is, I don't think that the pressure or the negativity comes only from the peers. It's the entire system as well.
Yeah.
And the children are being singled out.
Listening to your stories, I'm quite horrified, but I'd like to assure you that those teachers make up a very small percentage of our fraternity. In fact, I think the teachers are now moving towards building positive relationships with their students, and those are not words that we would use to motivate them to learn even more. When I get my students to bring home their grades or their test papers to their parents, I tell them, don't focus on the grades. So I told the child, and I've spoken to the parents as well, do not allow your mom or your dad to take the paper away from you and look at it without you having a say about what you did in your paper first. I do not want the child to feel that I am valued only by my grades. I want the child to go home and confidently say to the mother, listen, I got 16 out of 30 for my maths. I'd like to talk to you about the mistakes I made. If we can all get into that process where the child goes home and it's not the grades first, then we can start slowly changing that mindset.
My mother is a teacher. She's a Malay teacher for 40 years. She nurtures students as if she's teaching her own kids. The TLC, tender loving care, that needs to be put into perspective of the educators. It's not by the book. Okay, this one, you all open this book, study, up, and do your homework. That's it. No, but you need to have that human touch, that personal touch.
Some of the most important things in life are not measurable. Some of the best learners, entrepreneurs like you, may not get an A, I may not get a B, I may not even get a C. But you know what is the difference? It's the questions they ask. The best learners
Ask the best question.
ask the best questions. B or A doesn't define you at primary one for life. Cultivating that curiosity in our kids to ask questions is more important.
You must have grown up in a different era because I was always shut down for asking why.
No, I grew up in the era where I was not permitted to ask questions.
Correct. Yep.
Me
But-
too. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
well, we turned out okay.
Yeah.
We turned out okay.
Yeah.
So, in other words, have a little bit of confidence also in our kids that if we support them, they will have the ability over time to support themselves. Tjin, you are a young mother, my kids are a bit older. We go through different phases of life. Sometimes your heart will ache for your kids, but nevertheless, there's only so much a parent can do.
There will always be something for us to be stressed about. It's something that we put upon ourselves because you're still comparing yourself or your child to other people.
The singular thing that is wrong with our education system is the overemphasis on grades. And it is not a school issue only, it is not just a parent issue, but the way that the system is. An overemphasis on grades kills the joy of learning. It detracts from learning for life, and the downfall for a child would be just to learn for grades.
I would say that the fact that we want to fit square pegs into square holes all the time, that sort of outlook is detrimental, and not just in schools, but to the social fabric. And I would like to be able to see a change in that. We don't always need to have squares.
Minister, right now, most of our kids are brought up in a sheltered environment, and I employ part-timers. And the kids working part-time, they are too pampered, and they cannot take pressure. So how do we as parents teach them how to be more resilient?
If I may share, Bob, I don't think that resilience is something you can actually teach. Resilience is learned through experience. You have to let the children fail and then they will learn.
Would you agree to let your child go through an outward bound school at Sec 3?
Yeah.
If that's what he
we are,
wants.
we
That's
are,
experience.
we are putting our kids through outbound school at Sec 3, both boys and girls. It is not just a single school activity, but we'll bring different schools together so that they get
they
to mix.
bond
They get to go through
Experiences,
in Ubin, out at sea. They learn to cook, survive on a boat for a night, learn a little bit more about resilience. I have a younger daughter at 10 years old. She wanted to go to India. Can you imagine what was the reaction between my wife and I?
Yeah.
The answer was, no, you are not going. She's a relatively shy girl. And she plucked up the courage, explained that she wanted to experience a different type of environment. And she assured us that it would be okay. In fact, the young lady from India would come and stay in my home first so that we get to know her and she will host my daughter. We took some time, we pondered over it. Eventually I said, yeah, I think it's the right thing to do, let her go. But I have to talk to my boss.
Oh, your
I
wife.
got to convince my wife that I think it's okay. I know we are worried. We must have faith that she can take care of herself and the school will take care of her too.
It was a school trip.
Yeah, it was a school trip.
That's really
so
good.
she benefited very much from it. When she was a bit older, she decided to go to China into a remote village. There was a time where she had to go to Beach Road to buy the SAF flight. And I was wondering why. She said, Dad, where I'm going, there are no toilets. I got to make my way down a certain hill to use the bathroom. She was 16, going on another overseas trip. I'm glad we made that choice and not be super protective and let her go.
Talking about resilience in our children, are the teachers, are the parents themselves resilient? The key or fundamental aspect in being an influencer to a child is for us to be able to take the lead to first better ourselves so that we can create a better environment. And I would like to see that across the board. I'm not limiting that to teachers.
We as parents, we are the first line of educators. We need to nurture them at home before we give him to somebody else to nurture. It's like a domino effect. Start from home and then through the school system, let them go.
There is a disconnect between a lot of parents and teachers. Teachers assume parents want good grades. Parents assume teachers want good grades. And in order for the child to succeed, there has to be a strong partnership. So right now, we have a lot of schools participating in student-led conferences. A typical parent-teacher conference is where the student is not even there. And then the parent is listening to the teacher telling him, your son did so and so, this is how I'm going to help your son. And the parent go, all right, and this is how I will help my son at home. And that's it. The child must be involved in that process and supposed to take ownership of learning. The question should not be, how can I help my student or how can I help my child? That question should be directed towards the student. How can I help you? How do you want me to help you? And how can you help yourself?
Which brings nicely to the last question. Given all the changes in society, we've identified that parents and teachers as key enablers in a child's development and education. So what can teachers or parents do differently in order to bear more positive impact on our children?
I think as a parent, I would like to see us collectively and as a community and society move away from the academic pressure or the value of grades. I think we need to look at it holistically and together that celebrates happiness and success in different ways. You can be successful and not happy. And when I mean successful, they define it by you have to be a doctor, lawyer, banker, the traditional expectations. There are people in alternative careers who are even more successful and even happier in that sense that didn't get good grades in school. As a society, we should begin to turn that pressure switch off. Don't overemphasize the wrong things. As a parent, it starts with us.
There's this quote by Malcolm X. Education is the passport to your future because tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. Beautiful, man. Yeah? We need to trust each other. I need to trust them to educate my kid in the
Thank
future,
you.
and they need to trust us. So it's all based on trust, like a business.
The student cannot be defined by the grades that they get. From a very young age, we need to let the student see the impact that he makes on anything that he does, whether it's how he cleans his room or how he works together with his group Those are all positive impacts that they make. And students should see that as being something that contributes to their character as well. When children hear things from parents and from teachers, like, you had a difficult time with your brother just now, and I'm glad that you did not lose your temper. I'm glad you worked things out with him by talking to him. You know, they start to understand from there, they don't have to define themselves as an A grader or a B grader. They get lost in our school system. They feel so small. But if they understand that everyone has a part to play, that everyone has a positive impact and it contributes to something even greater, I think that's what we are aspiring for.
It is really not an easy task to change mindsets as a society, but we are taking the first moves. And over some time, hopefully, in a partnership with parents, we can shift it. Grades are not the markers of success. There are many ingredients that make the person successful. Nurture in our children the joy of learning. They will prepare them to explore, discover, and over time catch the entrepreneurial spirit. Our school system requires the partnership of educators, parents, and we must move society along to have that cultural shift, because we are in a good position with a strong school system.
But to the parents who want their children to excel, who feel that they have the right to get the A's and to be the best in the world, would they feel like this is dumbing down the education system for those who really want to excel?
That's a good question. I encourage parents to get their kids to excel, but make sure do it in an encouraging environment and really see what are your kids' strengths. Do not push them overboard. Do not transfer our expectations to them. The 21st century competencies is not just about thinking, the intellect, but also skills. In combination, we hope to create new paths and open up new possibilities for them, so that whether you are good in this or good in that, all Singaporean kids coming out of our school system will have the chance to succeed.
Beautiful.
What's been really great, clearly, is that everybody cares, whether they were going for grades or wanting to have a less stringent approach or trying to find different ways. Thank you for taking the helm on this and guiding us to a more enriched system. It's clear that in this climate of change, we also have to look at the way education needs to be changed, the way we're educating ourselves and our children. So from parents to teachers to schools, we probably could benefit from thinking differently, from trying to be more adaptable and to grow with our children. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you, Minister, for your time.
Thank you for sharing your views with me. I've learned a lot from you.
We're counting on you.
Yeah.
Don't let us down.
We'll do our best.
How's that for pressure? We're going to give you an A, okay?
No pressure, no pressure.